Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the DC Chamber of Commerce's Policy Forum 2018 that's entitled Technology, Jobs, and the Future of Work in the Nation's Capital, the District of Columbia. On behalf of the DC Chamber and the nearly 1,400 members and affiliates that we support, we thank you for joining us this morning, what is designed to be a very informative and interactive session today. And I'm just going to digress just a moment to say that the DC Chamber is celebrating its 80th anniversary, having been founded on June 20th, 1938. And of course, June 20th, 1938, this year was 80, we became 80 years old. So it's been a great year of activities for us. As you may have already seen through social media, We DC Fest is taking place over the next 3 days, and we are pleased to be a part of this innovative conference, which is showcasing entrepreneurs, investors, and government leaders throughout the city. As the voice of business in the District of Columbia, DC Chamber, it is great to be a part of this forum, which is another example of how the DC Chamber works to ensure our city remains the ideal place to do business today and for generations to come. In today's market, the world of work is in a state of flux, which is causing considerable anxiety, and for good reason. There is a growing polarization of labor market opportunities between high and low skilled jobs, unemployment and underemployment, especially among our young people, stagnating incomes for large proportions of households, and of course, income inequality. There's also a public debate about the future of work, whether there will be enough jobs, whether there be the appropriate jobs available for us to be gainfully employed. The threats we face at home and globally as societies are in flux, and as everybody in this room knows, there's a virtual threat with real consequences that is growing in strength and impact. In addition, all organizations must also protect their employees and the personal information that is stored on both work and personal computers. Both external and internal threats can target and harm an organization as well as our employees. Today, for example, regardless of your position or title in an organization, cybersecurity is something everyone must understand and make a part of their daily activities. It's extremely important for the DC Chamber of Commerce to stay on top of cybersecurity. We just entered into a memorandum of understanding with Georgetown University. We'll be utilizing their students. They'll be coming to our headquarters. We'll be doing more research and coming up with hopefully some solutions for cybersecurity. While technologies replace some jobs, they are creating new work in industries that most of us cannot even imagine, and new ways to generate income. Digital technology also can help new forms of entrepreneurial activity. So I'd like to say how grateful I am for what our business owners and entrepreneurs are already doing right now to address the skills gap in the tech sector. I would like to take a moment to thank all our sponsors, in particular the Office of the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development, which is the event sponsor, our support sponsor, the Washington, D.C. Economic Partnership, and all of our gold, silver, and bronze sponsors, which you see listed in the program. I would be amiss if I didn't thank my staff, because without my staff, we wouldn't have the success that we're enjoying, so I'd like to thank them as well. But now at this time, please help me in welcoming our first speaker of the morning, Jennifer Taylor, Vice President of the United States Jobs for the Consumer Technology Association. There she leads CTA's new 21st Century Workforce Member Council and also oversees U.S. tech vets, helping HR professionals in the tech industry identify and hire veterans and military spouses. Jennifer is going to highlight some of CTA's findings in their second annual study on the future of work. And as Jennifer come up, I would be amiss if I didn't acknowledge our chairman-elect for the DC Chamber of Commerce, who will be inaugurated on December 6th of this year, Ajay Madan in the back. Ajay, just raise your hand. Let's give him a round of applause. And without further ado, Ms. Taylor.
Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you today. I'm Jennifer Taylor, and I am the Vice President of U.S. Jobs, which is quite an interesting title, and I'll tell you a little bit about what I do at the Consumer Technology Association. But before I do that, I just want to let everybody know that CTA, if you're not familiar with us, we are the trade association that represents the consumer tech industry nationwide. We have over 2,200 member companies. They range from the multinational brands that you're well aware of, like Amazon, Facebook, Google, Netflix, Samsung, LG, et cetera. But we also have 80% of our member companies are small business. And one of the main things that we do is advocate for policies and legislation that helps grow and expand the tech industry. But what we're most famous for is that we own and produce CES, which is the largest tech show in the world. And it's a show for showcasing technology and innovation, and we host that every year in Las Vegas in January. So the challenge that my team, which is called the US Jobs team, is working to address is, number one, addressing the nation's critical skills gap. Probably everybody already knows this if you read the paper. We have 6.7 million open jobs in our country, according to the BLS, and 6 million people are unemployed. So what we have is a tremendous skills gap. There is a huge demand for people with IT skills, technical skills, and vocational, what we term as CTE skills, career and technical skills. So our team is working to help our member companies, those 2,200 member companies, address this skills gap and create a talented pipeline of workers today and in the future. It's really important that they have access to this talent so their companies can grow and thrive in our global economy. The other thing that our organization is doing is addressing this anti-tech narrative that we very much hear, that sometimes that robotics and automation and technology are displacing jobs, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But we are, CTA, are demonstrating that technology is actually unleashing job opportunities and job growth. So this is an opportunity for market entrants into the workforce, as well as current workers, but also future workers, to begin focusing on lifelong learning and learning skills that are in high demand throughout your life. So with that said, we just completed our second Future of Work study, and we will be publishing that in the next couple of weeks. So the key theme to the study is that optimism for accessing tech talent is actually shrinking, but there's a good news story to that. What we found when we interviewed our CTA member companies and also attendees that attend CES, we found that the need for skilled workers is at an all-time high. Compared to last year, our respondents said 92% said that they will need more employees with tech skills in the next 5 years. That was up 6 points from last year when it was about 86%. So we're seeing this dire need of tech companies, and it goes beyond tech companies, quite frankly, with a dire need for talented workers. They're also finding that it's getting harder for the tech industry to find these high-skilled jobs, the candidates. They're finding it very difficult to find the candidates. 74%, it's very difficult to find the candidates, and only 7% think it's going to get easier in the next 5 years. So that means 93% think it's going to be difficult. So while the outlook is very challenging, the good news is that the tech industry, in my opinion, is leading the way in closing the skills gap. They're not just sitting on the sidelines and hoping that colleges are going to turn out the talent they need, which, by the way, only 33% of high school graduates finish a bachelor's degree in our country. So we have so many opportunities as a nation and an industry to provide new educational pathways for that remaining 2/3. And so what we're seeing is our companies are committed to reskilling their current workers so that they are learning things and can perform jobs that are open within their organization. Amazon is a great example of that. They're also working very closely with their community colleges, with vocational schools, and four-year universities to co-create curriculum and also create new pathways. So we're seeing an emergence of apprenticeships for what we call the new collar workers. So these are people who are studying IT skills, and you don't need a four-year degree to do that. You can do so by obtaining certifications or just getting an associate's degree. And there are many jobs available in the IT sector that are available for these new collar workers. For example, IBM has deployed a nationwide apprenticeship program, which is really impressive, and they're working to bring these IT apprenticeships to scale. Because at this time, most of the apprenticeships with the Department of Labor tend to be the apprenticeships that we commonly think of that started years ago, like in areas of plumbing, electricity, welding, and those are all very important, and those also have a high degree of demand, but there's an opportunity to grow and expand the types of apprentices that we offer in our country. So we're seeing many of our companies like Amazon, like IBM, begin to offer these work-based learning programs to future workers, which we are calling the new collar worker. And so with that, I'll just end by saying, this is a tremendous time in our history. We're embarking on the fourth industrial revolution. There are so many jobs to be had in the future. Many of them we don't even know what they are. And so it's absolutely imperative that we encourage Americans of all ages to focus on lifelong learning. That the days of just learning one skill and having that career for 60, 70 years, and as people live longer, we're gonna need to work longer. So we really need to encourage Americans to embrace this concept of lifelong learning, being curious learners, and adapting their careers and pivoting when necessary to ensure that they have meaningful employment throughout their lives. So with that, I'll wrap it up. Thank you.
Dr. Trujillo is a seasoned professional. She currently is with the Georgetown University Systems Engineering and Technology Management programs, serving as the faculty director and an associate professor. Prior to joining the university, she was with a global USAID project as a deputy director for capacity development, and she's going to address you today on women in the workforce and STEM fields. Dr. Trujillo.
So I think we're running late, and what I do in Spanish is I speak really fast. Buenos días. Good morning. So I'm going to speak really fast and go through these slides really fast. Thank you, Vincent Orange, President and CEO, and Margaret Singleton, Vice President of Contracts Programs, DC Chamber of Commerce, for having me. I understand this forum is part of the DC Chamber's programming, and Georgetown University is a sponsor. And as a result of being a DC Chamber Circle partner, we're here. I also understand that from my colleague, Dr. Frederick Lemieux, that there's an MOU between the intelligence and cybersecurity programs in the Chamber, so lots to give thanks for. Let's get this rolling. So my starting point is my own life in the STEM world. It hasn't been a direct path. I thought I'd start this story with a little of my own story. You'll see that there's a twisty-turvy road in the path that I've chosen, and it starts with a stop sign. I was 10 years old when I was selected. I started to participate in the Math Olympics team in Cali, Colombia, where I was born. And I was told that if I got the 10th spot, I could go participate in the Math Olympics team as part of the Colombian team for the whole world. And I did get that 10th spot. And I was taken to the side and told by the organizers that no, I wasn't going to be able to go to Bogota and I wasn't going to be able to be on the team because they had made arrangements for 5 double rooms for 10 boys. And I was the 10th girl, and they had no space for a girl. And so that was my first stop sign. And I said, well, it looks like this is going to be challenging. This is going to be difficult for a girl to be interested in STEM. It didn't stop me. And when I was 13 years, we got our first Atari, and I was playing Atari with my brother, who was 3 years younger, and I beat him. And I said, well, it looks like there is a go sign after all. I can actually play this and beat him, and I can learn how to use technology as well as my brother can. Kept on going, and we traveled to Florida where my father was doing his PhD, and we went back to Colombia, and we were in customs, and we had an Apple II, and the customs agent asked my father, what is that? And my father said, it's a typewriter. It's a fancy typewriter. And the customs agent let us through, and we, got our first microcomputer in Colombia, which was called a fancy typewriter, and we played games, and we coded the computer, and that was a go sign. I decided to be an engineer just like my father was, and so I told my father, I want to be a computer science engineer, Dad. And he said, well, I've been president of this university here in Cali, Colombia. There is no computer science. You have to choose a close match to computer science, and there was industrial engineering, so I chose industrial engineering. And I was an industrial engineer, and I learned how to code in Fortran and in COBOL with punch cards, and did everything my colleagues did, and that was a go sign. I was actually as good as they were and proved that I could be an industrial engineer. By the end of my industrial engineering age, I discovered that I liked artificial intelligence. That was 1989. I had developed an expert system, but I didn't want to be in Colombia anymore. I wanted to go somewhere where I was not under my father's tutelage anymore. I wanted to be independent. And so I chose Edinburgh because it was one of the top 5 in Europe. And I went to Edinburgh to get my master's in artificial intelligence. And I developed an intelligent tutoring system, and I was very happy there. I went back to Colombia and I said, I'm going to research in artificial intelligence. I need an internet account. And they said, good luck. There's no internet in Colombia. That was a stop sign. There's no internet in Colombia? What do you mean? No, we have BitNet. I don't know what that is. I need internet. Good luck. And so after 5 years, $1 million, working with a lot of men, we connected Colombia to the internet. And I was dubbed the internet girl because there were a lot of men surrounded me. So my 13-year-old daughter said, you should put a star there, Mom, because connecting Colombia to the internet requires a star. So that's why the star is there. The internet girl. So when I connected Colombia to the internet, I found out that people were teaching, learning, researching in a different way in the university that I had worked for. And I said, forget all the nuances about technology. Let's look at the impact of technology in development, in education, in income, in health. What does technology do to you? And so that's what I decided to study as my PhD research area. So I went to Tulane in New Orleans, and I did research of the impact of technology in the development of people around the world. And so I was there, and then I was hired as faculty, and I should have put a hurricane icon, but it wasn't like technology. So Katrina made us evacuate from New Orleans to the DC area. And we evacuated to Rockville, and I became part of the Beltway Bandits, and that's another story. But I took a shortcut and then put a Georgetown logo. And even though there's a end of route flag there, it doesn't mean that I've ended my career. It's just that the drawing was ending there. But I just wanted to show you that it's a difficult path for a woman that chooses technology. It has a lot of stop signs, it has a lot of challenges, it has a lot of moments that you think, why am I doing this if this is so hard? There's an easier way to do this, right? And that's what I'm going to be talking about. So instead of just telling you about my successful bio, I wanted to show you some of the challenges too. Women make up approximately, depending on the study that you read, 50% of the US workforce, but only no more than 28% of the workforce in STEM fields. Now think about it for a minute. Only 28. Most of the studies give it 27, 24%. We're half of the workforce, and yet we're not even close to half of the STEM workforce. Why is that? Does anybody have an idea of why is that? Right, so there's like answers that have to do with girls, the elementary years. There's answers that have to do with the workplace. You come across a lot of studies that have to do with answers that have to do with the environment and with different stages. So being the industrial engineer that I am, I said, let's look at it systematically. And let's look at it from a funnel perspective, because it's not a pipeline, it's a funnel. The funnel is actually really wide in the beginning, and then it becomes really narrow at the end. And we're losing, in each stage of the funnel, women. And why are we losing them? So the first stage is the girls in STEM, STEM high school, STEM college, entry-level STEM job, and then leadership STEM job. And there's reasons that we're going to look at quickly of why we lose women in every stage of that funnel. So I'm going to call those losses leaks in the funnel. Let's start with girls. And that's my 13-year-old girl wearing a Girls Who Code t-shirt right there. So I have never bought the math is hard, let's go shopping Barbie for her. But it's out there, and many girls actually buy into that stereotype, right? Oh, this is so hard, let's just do some retail therapy, right? So there's studies out there, and there's a book called Pink Brain, Blue Brain by Lise Elliott that proves that there's little solid evidence of sex differences in children's brains. So boys' brains grow a little larger and girls' brains grow a little faster, but those differences are not associated to differences in learning. So boys and girls can learn math equally well. Yet we don't believe that, right? When there's a computer in the house, it usually ends up in the boys' room, not in the girls' room. The perceived notion that girls have less disposition toward technology is still there, right? And it starts with parents, with mothers and fathers, right? And so there are few gender differences in children's brains that relates to learning, yet the self-perceived ability have something to do with performance. So girls perceive themselves with the differences in ability. Oh, I can't do that, it's too hard. And then it becomes too hard. So that's the first part of the funnel. Then there's the high school STEM. The performance that we observe in US math scores compared to the rest of the world is way below average. So this is the US. These are industrialized nations. These are all the same average as the US. These are all nations that score higher than the US, and these are nations that score lower than the US in math tests. The average score of 481 fell below the OECD average of 494 and was lower than the 21 other industrialized nations. So we're way, way below the average of other industrialized nations as far as math scores are concerned. That's high school. Now, the ones that actually make it, that say, okay, I'm going to go for that career in STEM, have to face the dropout point, which is Calculus 1. A lot of studies have shown that when Calculus 1 comes around, it's the highest give-up point there is for women in college. And it's the same reason that girls give for not doing well in math is because women are 1.5 times more likely to drop out of calculus because they think that they're not going to perform well. Not that they don't perform well, but they think that they are not going to perform well, so they drop out. So the odds of a woman being dissuaded from continuing in calculus is 1.5 times greater than for a man. So it suggests a lack of mathematical confidence rather than a lack of mathematical ability. It's responsible for the high departure rate of women. And calculus is, as you know, required course for STEM fields. Then come the STEM jobs. Just getting in the door is harder for a woman than it is for a man. So her resume may look exactly like his, but because her name is Mary and not John, she may not get a second look. A review of studies of the US decision makers who have the power to hire candidates found that clearly competent men were rated higher than equally competent women. Bias especially rampant in high-tech industry. One study conducted by professors in Columbia, Northwestern, and University of Chicago found that 2/3 of managers selected male job candidates even when the men did not perform as well as the women on math problems that were part of the application process. So it's difficult to get in, and then once you're in, the family pressures make you drop out. What happens between the ages of 20 and 30 when you want to actually have a family and you don't have the flexibility in your job that allows you to have a family? In a high-tech job, you drop out. You quit. What happens when you face a hostile work environment? And I'm not even going to touch that further. So the 5 barriers experienced by women in tech are lack of mentors, lack of female role models, gender bias in the workplace, unequal growth opportunities, and unequal pay for the same skills. And then leadership in STEM. So competent men are seen as likable, while competent women are seen as bossy. Women get less credit for their accomplishments than men do. That men are often promoted and promised, while women are elevated only on the basis of their performance. And sexual harassment is a constant for women in tech. So there you have it, the whole funnel. And there's much more. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Right? So what do? Well, you can't be what you can't see, right? So where are those female roles, those strong female roles in tech that girls and young women can look up to? Usually invisible. In the book Brotopia by Emily Young, there's this case about Google, and what really struck me was the highlight of Susan. Do you guys know who she is? No. Susan Wojcicki. She's the CEO of YouTube, and she was the one that had the garage that was rented to Larry Page and Sergey Brin, the owners and founders of Google. So she not only rented the garage to them, which was, serendipitous, but she was the one that ran their marketing in the early years. She came up with the Google Doodle, the AdWords, and the AdSense. She was the one that came up with the business model that made Google so successful. But nobody knows because women are invisible. So where are these mentors Where are these stories? Why don't we hear them? Women exit the tech industry 45% higher than men. That was a study carried out in Silicon Valley, why Silicon Valley was so awful to women, the elephant in the valley. It's all online. It's very interesting. I highly recommend it. So how do we make those losses, those leaks into gains? How do we support the funnel so that it actually starts gaining back and not losing as it is? Well, we support girls who code. If a woman persisted in STEM the same as men in Calculus 1, for example, the number of women entering the STEM workforce would increase by 75%. So if we had programs around Calculus 1 saying you can do this and we can support you, it would actually increase by 75%. If we had parental leave for men, for example, like they have in Sweden, it would increase the way women adopt their family strategy. If we told our story, if we became visible, if we became mentors, that would probably help leadership in the last stage of the funnel. I'm going to skip over the women in tech storyline, but just say that in 1984, the percentage of women in computer science was at an all-time high. It wasn't like this all the time. We actually had a lot of interested and active women in computer science before. This is something that's been declining since then, but it wasn't like this all the time. So last two slides, why do we care? So what? So what? Women aren't in tech, so what? Well, it does matter because it affects the bottom line. What is the impact of gender diversity of technology on technology business performance? So a study by Women and Information Technology shows that the key benefits of gender diversity have to do with changes in performance, changes in team performance, being on time and under budget, and it actually makes a difference in the bottom line. So we do want women in tech because it makes a difference in the bottom line, if anything. Thank you.
We're going to move now into our panel discussion, and we have great panelists that are going to be joining both Jennifer Taylor as well as Dr. Trujillo. And at this point in time, I would like to introduce them. And before I do that, I would be amiss if I did not acknowledge another one of our board members who's joined us this morning, and that is Ms. Jan Adams of JMA Solutions. And if you have not heard of JMA Solutions, there's an interesting story, I think, as we talk about women in tech and as we talk about those things that women entrepreneurs are doing here in the city. So, gentlemen, we are really pleased to bring our panelists up, and we are going to have Dr. Trujillo, who's going to moderate the panel. We have with us Comrade Samuels, who is the Workforce Development Lead for Pepco Holdings, which is an Exelon company. We also have with us Mr. Abel Obamadu, who is Vice President of Information Technology at JMA Solutions. And you have met both Jennifer and Maria, so we'll ask if you would come up at this point in time. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Abel Obamadu, and I'm the Vice President of IT for JMA Solutions, and I think my boss is here today. Yeah, she's found somewhere in the crowd. I started out in technology as a network administrator. That was in '95, and over the years I have acquired some skills that made me where I am today. And the thing is always to stay focused on on the things that are changing, because IT is dynamic. Every day things do change. It's just for you to stay with the technology, because what obtains today might not be what that is there tomorrow. But being there and doing a lot of research, doing a lot of reading, sharing ideas, meeting with people who are actually in the technology field, and just going for what is there. For instance, if we take for instance Windows technology. We started out with 95, Windows 3.1 to 95. Then we started the operating system. The foundation is still there, but every now and then things do change. In October, Windows 2019 will be out. So they are still building on that technology that was way before, but there has been a lot of advancement in it to support the changing world.
All right, I really appreciated your roadmap because I can relate to that. I actually had an Apple II in my home as well when in 1980 my dad brought it home from work. He actually worked at Burroughs too in the Detroit area. And I wanted an Atari, but we had this Apple IIe and we had some crude games on a floppy disk. But I took it further than that. I decided to teach myself how to code in BASIC, and I would, basically create programs that I could print cool pictures with. So then it kind of stopped. I didn't have another place, another outlet in my school or anywhere to take it further. Until I went to the University of Michigan, I did take some computer science classes there. I did take calculus. But I ended up deciding to go into business. And so I started my career in a traditional business role, marketing and then sales, and became a director of marketing and sales. And then I worked at ARP for 10 years. And what happened is I had the opportunity to build out their technology platform offerings for members. And then as part of my time there, I had the opportunity to work on a partnership with Intel, and we developed a tablet that was easy to use for seniors because at the time they still weren't adopting digital technology, and there's so many benefits to aging in place and having a higher quality of life with bringing technology into your life. And so I worked on that, and then I got exposed to lean product agile development. I ended up leaving ARP and I went to work at a software company where we developed a caregiving app. And I, again, was exposed to lean product agile development. Now, I wasn't the programmer, I wasn't the product manager, developer, but I worked in a team that had software engineers, both for Android and iOS and architecture engineers, and it just was amazing. And so I never would have thought in 1991 when I graduated that my business career would lead me into a tech world. And because of that tech experience, I now have the opportunity to work at the Consumer Technology Association, where I'm representing the industry and we're addressing a major issue, which is the skills gap. And it involves new training pathways, new encouragement for both women, girls, and those who are traditionally underrepresented. And so we as an association are going to take that and tackle it.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Conrad Samuels, and I would say from a tech perspective, the talent focus, working in talent acquisition, really focusing on attracting the right talent for an organization, I guess is the perspective that I would come from as far as the technical topic is concerned. Let me first say thank you for the opportunity for being here. Thank you, Dr. Trujillo, for that excellent presentation. I'll use that for my 8:30 a.m. Saturday morning check-in with my two daughters. We do an educational check-in because of the dance and the soccer practices during the week. We have a formal check-in 8:30 Saturday morning. I'll use that at that point. But again, from a talent perspective, really the technical piece as well as other roles, I see it as critical competitive advantage for organizations. We at Pepco Holdings and Exelon Company, we see firsthand the challenge, or know firsthand, I would say, the challenges of attracting and hiring talent. So the programs that organizations have in place, not only to attract talent, whether it be female talent or the groups that are traditionally underrepresented, needs to be matched by programs that really match the employment life cycle. So training, development, retention, all of those pieces need to be critical, and I can certainly share a little bit about that and some of the skill gaps and what we're doing to help in those places also.
So excellent. Then question I was going to ask all of you was, what skills and capabilities do you see the most demand for today? And I think we can start with you, Conrad, and come back.
Okay. Interestingly enough, whether it be a technical role or a non-technical role, the ability for our team members to work collaboratively, or in some what are traditionally called some of the softer skills, that's first and foremost. As we're looking for leaders, we have leaders in some roles where they may not be an SME or know every detail about a particular space within our business. So their abilities to lead, interact with others, be a part of a team to collaborate effectively, all of those things are critical, as well as the technical component, which is needed also.
So from the perspective of the consumer tech industry, I would say what we're seeing as the skills that are in greatest demand are those primarily that are associated with information technology. So we need more software engineers, we need more data analysts, we certainly need more cybersecurity experts. In Virginia alone, there's over 20,000 open jobs, according to our governor, and every state has a demand for cyber security because every company has data and they need to protect it. So I would say those are some of the key areas in IT. However, the other skills that I see that are in high demand from research are also in healthcare. So we have a huge shortage of nurses and people in the healthcare marketplace. So there's many opportunities there. And then I'll just address manufacturing. Manufacturing jobs are actually on the rise. They're, I think, according to the BLS, we have over 12.5 million manufacturing jobs filled, and there is a demand for more. And that is important to note because manufacturing is changing. There's higher demand for what we call AMTs, so that stands for an automation mechanic technician, something like that. And so we're seeing more of a greater need for employees who can work alongside robotics and automation in the manufacturing environment. So these are requiring skills that require critical thinking skills, problem-solving skills, working with others. These are not what I call the 4D jobs that are dull, dangerous, dirty, and the dear, like working on something that's extremely valuable. So we're seeing manufacturing completely change the nature of jobs and making them quite more meaningful. Bill?
The skill set, in IT, it's a big field. There are so many areas that I would think, when you talk about cyber security, yes, that's an area that people are trending towards. However, there are other areas in technology, for instance, when it comes to hardware, where are the skill set in that? Because people are needed to manage hardware where cybersecurity, resides on. That's on the soft aspect of it. In my environment currently, we have system administrators. These are the people that actually, look at how things run every day. Then on top of that is the data people. For instance, there's SharePoint, how to manage all these big data. There's Tableau that to modernize and to graphically represent the things that you actually want your customers to see. So when it comes to the skill set, yes, cyber is on top of it. But there are those groundwork people, the system administrators, the hardware people, the network administrators who take care of your infrastructure in-house. So at some point, I'm gonna move on to other things. But if I don't have that particular skill set for somebody to manage the infrastructure that's currently there, then there's a gap there. So why people would try to tell them, go out there, get the necessary skills that are needed for tomorrow, but we don't want to forget who's going to take care of the infrastructure that is in-house.
So along those lines, how do emerging technologies and innovations affect your organization, and how do they apply in your organization? Are you making plans for tomorrow, or are you taking care of those skill gaps today?
Innovations in the sense that, when it comes to your environment, you have to look at innovations that can evolve, that can stand a test for tomorrow. You're not just innovating for today. Are these innovations going to stand the test of time? The things that you want to build on. So, for instance, for emerging technologies, for instance, cloud computing, and how is that going to support the profit-wise when it comes to the company? You want to be able to take that out of your environment and give it to somebody else to manage. And some of those innovations as well must be scalable in nature, in the sense that your ability to build on those innovations to support the things that you want to be able to do tomorrow.
Thank you.
So I would say some of the emerging technologies and innovations that we see firsthand with our member companies fall into areas of artificial intelligence, AR, VR, augmented reality and virtual reality, automation, just to name a few. And so we're seeing our member companies adopt these emerging technologies and use them more for a number of reasons. Number one, it improves the outcome of the product or the service for the customer. For example, make products safer, like cars. We have many auto manufacturers who are our member companies, so they're using more technologies on the cars and sensors and self-driving functionality to make cars safer for drivers, for example. So it's to produce. They're using these technologies to make enhanced products and services. They're also using technologies like AI or automation and robotics to be more efficient and have higher productivity and have a better ROI, if you will. So they're using these technologies to just have higher performance in their workplace. So that's having an impact on the type of jobs that they need, and the nature of jobs are changing. So we're seeing companies like Amazon. They have a program called the Career Choice Program, where someone who has been a full-time employee for a year working on the fulfillment floors, if they would like to, Amazon is allowing them to study something, a topic or a degree or a career that is in high demand in their local area, and they are covering close to like 95 or more % of the cost of tuition. And in many cases, in large facilities that they have, they're bringing the training to the facility to take out any friction for these workers. Their idea is that they don't want people working on the fulfillment floor for the rest of their lives. So they're investing in their if you will, entry-level employees, whether they work at Amazon later in life or not. So that's just one example of what companies are doing to invest in their pipeline of workers to make sure they have the skills that are in high demand.
Thank you.
Thanks. I would say our customer demands are driving, or a major driver, I would say, of some of the technology and enhancements that we have. The customers obviously want to be more informed, knowledgeable about their energy usage, certainly about what they may be paying and why they're paying. So that's a major driver from an internal perspective as far as talent and technology is concerned. That's required us to upskill some of our existing staff or team members, so providing training, and in some cases even having to provide that training from outside. Traditionally, I think a lot of our training was done internally. Now tapping into external sources or talent to help with that training. From a talent acquisition perspective, some of the roles that were there for decades, the meter reader role and things along those lines, are no longer there. So the talent that you're looking to attract to the organization, that's key as they're working in different roles. We do leverage some pre-employment testing to ensure that we're getting the skill sets that are needed for those roles. And if and when we find that some of our talent pools do not have those skill sets, we are currently partnering with the District of Columbia government, University of District of Columbia, on various workforce development initiatives, one being the Infrastructure Academy, where we're looking to train talent from the local communities and prepare them for careers within the electric utility industry.
Thank you. So besides training, what other ways are there for retaining employees, like flexibility in contracts and so forth? Jennifer.
You want me to take that one first?
Yeah.
Okay. So some of the things that we see our member companies do to retain workers is, first of all, providing benefits that are attractive. Our research study says the most important one is healthcare benefits. So that's, if you want to retain employees, that's probably a great place to start. But another thing is, we're seeing a lot of companies hire either contract workers or enabling their staff to work from home. And especially if you're in a software engineering type, if you're a software developer, that can work really well. When I was at my prior company, Segway Technologies, as I told you, we were developing consumer apps. We had software developers all over Virginia, and we would communicate using WebEx and a program called the PRN, and I called it Hollywood Squares. And everybody would pop up, and we would review our sprints and our roadmap and discuss what changes we wanted to make to our application. And quite frankly, we're seeing more companies be willing to do this, because it's just kind of a waste of time, especially software engineers, to be on the road. Let's say they have a long commute for 2 hours a day or whatever, when they could be more efficient with that time. And with technology, we were still able to create an environment of working as a team. So we had our Android engineer out in Stafford County, and the iOS engineer in Manassas. So we were all over the place. So I'm seeing a rise in accepting that. And what is really great about that is, as broadband expands, then there's going to be more job opportunities for people in rural areas. And that is an area where there's just a lot of opportunity. And as you, I'm sure, have seen in the news, people are just not moving to the degree that they used to years ago.
Retaining employees, first of all, it's a question you want to ask: are these people worth keeping? If they are worth keeping, then yes, you have to invest in them. Investing in them means, training, offering them competitive benefit. That's where your HR will come in, look at, the same companies around your environment. What are they offering that you are not offering? And if it's a salary thing, you do the analysis, to see, these other companies are able to keep theirs. What am I doing wrong? So that's a thing that the management of the company will have to decide. Of course, you want to provide a comfortable working environment for them, and again, too, I want to especially thank my boss, Jan Adams. When we moved when I started working with the company, we were sharing office space, with a different company. But over time, we're moving to a suite that is, a suite that is so sweet. You understand what I'm saying? So, almost everyone has a window office. You're able to look out and say, oh, this is actually, it's beautiful out there. You see the sunshine, if it's rainy, and all that. Other than that, you want to be able to, listen to them. There are needs that they have. Put managers there who are going to be able to listen to these employees, because as owner of a company, not everything is going to flow to you to get to your ear. But if you have line managers who are able to listen to these employees and take all their concerns into consideration, then you're able to retain them. And of course, again, like I mentioned before, investing in them. Investing in them means send them to training, because the more you develop their skill set, the more they are going to help you in your company. Because as a company, you don't actually know everything, but you surround yourself with all the skill set that are able to help you, be competitive out there and win more contracts for the company.
Thank you.
And I would say for Pepco Holdings, one of the larger initiatives that we have is called Talent Accelerated. And it's really looking again at the employee life cycle and everything within their performance management, performance development, and so on. A couple of the initiatives under the Talent Accelerated umbrella, one is called Lead, Coach, and Engage. And that's focused on leadership development, but really on how work is done, not what work is done. So for leaders, working individually with their team members, getting to know those team members, coaching those team members, enhancing their skills, providing them the support that they need to actually excel in their jobs, and then certainly engaging them. All of those things lead to a more engaged workforce and certainly a more productive workforce. We certainly offer the opportunities for people to work remotely. That is a key component also. And we also have employee resource groups at the organizations where, especially some of the newer employees in the energy industry, our average age is probably about 46, 47. The average tenure may be between 15 and 18 years. So someone newer coming in, sometimes it's part of a work group, and that can be very intimidating if you're starting relatively early in your career, working with a group that's a little bit more experienced. So employee resource groups that are focused in different areas, whether it's millennials, different groups, they're able to tap in to those various groups and get a little bit more acclimated in terms of the organization. Those are just a few of the things that we offer.
Thank you.
Could we just give our panel and our moderators another round of applause? Thank you very much. I would like to say thank you to those of you in the audience who came out today. One of the things that I was impressed with as we heard our panelists speak, and everybody, it's good to hear the different perspectives when you're beginning to look at different issues. So when you think about it, we had utilities here, we had education, we had the private sector in terms of the business perspective, and then we had association. And I think that those are all good when you start to think about what are some of the common areas, I think, in terms of job development and talent development that everyone is looking at, but then what are some of the things in terms of priorities, depending upon where you are, I would say, in terms of the business pipeline. So I would like to say to you, thank you so very much. This is the Chamber's last policy forum for this year. We will begin our series starting next year, and we hope that you will join us. Thank you so very much for coming out.